Call of Duty just revealed their roadmap and blog for Season 3, and there's a ton of information in there for Warzone and for multiplayer, but what I'm really interested in is DMZ. So in this video, I'm going to take you through some of the big changes coming to DMZ that are talked about in this blog. Now, I was just in a creator call where we found out loads of information about Season 3. We can't talk about all of that yet, but we will be able to soon, so make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on, and then you'll be the first to know when those videos come out. But I'm really excited about the stuff that's in this blog, so let's focus on this. The first thing is the barter system. This is the first of 3 kind of quality of life changes, things that are going to change the way you play basically every game of DMZ, which I think is pretty cool. So I'll read you what it says in the blog first of all. It says, one of the biggest additions since the launch of DMZ is the barter system, a way to award operators who stock up on items and can reach a buy station to swap them for other valuables. In general, the trader may not have what you want, but they will always have what you need. There's no peer-to-peer trading through the system, but of course, you are still free to swap items during a match with friendly operators, especially those who operate taxi services. As we have heard, they are incredibly helpful. So, I'm sure lots of people who have played DMZ, basically everyone who's played DMZ and tried to do missions, will have experienced that feeling of you're looking for one particular item, sensitive documents, a blowtorch, a GPU, a gold skull, and you just can't find it. But you are finding a bunch of other useless junk. You're finding insulin, you're finding bandages, you're finding normal documents. The way I think this is working is that when you go to a buy station, there's going to be a separate menu or a separate tab, and on there'll be a list of items you can get and what the trader wants in exchange for them. So maybe it'll be like, that mission where you have to get the medical bags. Maybe it'll be like, hey, if you bring us 6 bandages, you can swap those 6 bandages for a medical bag. Something like that. Hopefully they'll be related to the missions. Hopefully they won't be something stupid like, hey, if you bring me 6 gold skulls, then I'll give you a screwdriver. I can kind of imagine that happening. But hopefully it won't be like that. Hopefully it'll be stuff that you really want, you'll be able to get by picking up other items that are maybe more common, maybe things that you can find a little bit easier. So I think that's super cool. It'll add an extra kind of layer, an extra feature to looting. It'll make it a little bit more interesting. So that's very cool. The next thing is the workbench. So the workbench is something that we actually saw in COD Next. So at COD Next, well, not exactly the workbench, but something like it. At COD Next, when a load of creators got to play an early version of Warzone 2, when they went to buy stations, there was a menu for attachments that was grayed out, and everyone was a bit confused about what that was meant to be. Now, it sounds a bit like this is what the workbench is. So this is going to be something that it says another major addition to DMZ's workbench, which can be found near buy stations and allows you to modify contraband weapons. So when it says it's found near buy stations, apparently they're not going to show up on the attack map separately, but instead it's just wherever you find a buy station, there will be a workbench somewhere near it. I'm guessing like within vision of it. So you'll be able to find it, and it lets you modify the contraband weapons. So any weapons you've picked up in the game, or contraband weapons that you've brought in with you, you're going to be able to change the attachments on them. It says, for a nominal cash fee, the workbench allows an operator to add attachments they've unlocked for the contraband's weapon platform onto a piece of contraband or remove them piece by piece. Helpful for those times when a 5.5 scope does not fit on a fast-firing SMG or when a sniper rifle needs an extended mag, the workbench will become another way to spend that hard-earned cash on something impactful for that infiltration and beyond. So this sounds awesome because there's loads of times where the contraband weapons are kind of good enough, but you need one extra attachment to make them work. Usually for me in DMZ, it's suppressors. If I pick up a contraband weapon and it doesn't have a suppressor, I'm probably not going to use it because then when you're fighting AI, as soon as you fire one shot, all of the AI comes and sort of swarms over you. Suppressors are super useful in DMZ. Also, sometimes you find some contraband weapons and the sights are kind of rubbish, so it's nice to be able to just choose the sight you want. So you're going to be able to take any contraband you want to one of these workstations, and you're going to be able to fit the attachments you need onto them. That sounds absolutely awesome. I quite like the way they look as well, where I've got like a 3D printer on the top. That kind of makes sense, the idea that like, oh, you can just 3D print an attachment and slot it on out on a field. I like that. I think it's very, very cool. And it's going to make contraband weapons quite a lot more useful. Now, the next thing, and this is something I genuinely hadn't even considered being a thing before, but I think this is my favorite one of the updates that they've talked about so far. And these are active duty slots. So they show there being 4 on this screenshot that they've put out. And basically, these are like characters. These are like characters that you can take into DMZ, and importantly, you can swap between them, almost like separate save profiles, I guess. So imagine you go in with your active duty slot 1, and you manage to get like a large backpack, you've got a kill streak, you've got a self revive, you've got a gas mask, you've got a free plate, and you're maybe on an exfil streak. You've got like, Damascus exfil streak, you've got 10 exfil streak, all of the perks and everything. And then your friend who's never played DMZ before hops on and is like, hey, can you come do some Building 21 runs with me? You might be a little bit hesitant to take your game in, go take your character into that, your main character in DMZ, you've only got one at the moment, take them in with that and say like, hey, if this goes wrong, I'm going to lose absolutely everything. But with active duty slots, you're going to be able to be like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll just use a different slot, use a different operator, and then that operator, you'll be able to take them in, and if you get stuff on them, then brilliant, you've now got 2 slots that are geared up. If they lose everything, it doesn't really matter because your first duty slot still has all of that stuff. They're not affected by you dying with a different character. So that's awesome. So it says here, their description of it is, in Season 3, you won't just have one operator to infiltrate the deniable areas. Every player will start with 3 active duty operator slots, which equates to having 3 separate operators who have their own on-soldier items. These include your backpack, plate carrier, kill streak, self-revive, and gas mask. Obviously, pretty much everything else goes into your stash, your weapon stash, or your key stash, or your mission item stash, so that doesn't matter so much. For every infiltration, you can choose which active duty operator you bring in, meaning that you can calculate risk to whatever missions you want to tackle, or the type of experience you want to have in that match. For example, you can have one active duty operator saved up for the major story missions and Building 21 runs, stacked up with a free plate carrier, self-revive kit, and more, then have another that's built for scavenging items with nothing but a 1 plate carrier to their name. Personally, I'll use this loads because there's tons of times I want to grab a screenshot for a thumbnail, or I want to grab a little bit of video of a location, and essentially I just need to hop into DMZ by myself because I'm not going to get someone else to come and help me just for that, and then take a screenshot and then get out again. And that's really risky if I'm fully geared up because I'm going in solo, there's a decent chance I could die. Normally I'm rushing when I do that. But with this, I could literally just keep one active duty slot as my character that I don't care what happens to them. And then I could keep another one for when I'm playing with Flynn and we're trying to progress and we're trying to keep everything, as high level as possible. You could even do stuff like just make it a bit of a mission sometime when you're grinding out to try and get all 3 duty slots or all 4 duty slots, because it sounds like you can unlock one somehow. And then you can get them all completely geared up, have free plates on all of them. And then when you take on a hard mission, if you fail it, if you die, you don't need to do a separate regain thing, which kind of kills the vibe a little bit, kills the pacing. Instead, you can just switch to another character slot and get straight back in there to try again. I think this is an awesome change, really cool, and again, something that was quite unexpected. Now, that's not all that's coming to DMZ. They've also talked about a new faction. They're called Redacted, which is kind of confusing because it sounds a little bit like they're just redacting what they're calling it. But nope, they are actually called Redacted. And it says they're coming Season 3 and will have 3 mission tiers at launch, plus 2 more in season. Now, this is awesome to me because I've always said I would like them to sort of stagger the release of missions. I'd like them, people like me who have poor self-control, who just want to go through and blitz through absolutely everything. It's pretty cool. There's going to be 3 mission tiers next week on Wednesday, and then we'll be able to play through those, and then we'll know we're getting a few more missions in the mid-season update, so in a month's time. I think that's absolutely awesome. Really happy with that. And it's just exciting to get a new faction in this way, rather than having like these big mission wipes. Instead, we're having a new faction, so just extra missions to do. And people who haven't finished the other missions yet, they've still got all of them. They're not getting wiped or anything like that. They're not getting taken away. So I think that's very cool. Then it also says there's new and remixed missions and a new contract. It says Infinity Ward is introducing a new set of faction missions, which is the new faction, I'm guessing, as well as a new contract. Although reading that, when it says a new set of faction missions, does that mean there's actually extra missions? Is there like an extra tier or something like that? I'm guessing not. I think they just mean for the new faction. But anyway, it says that is the secure supplies contracts. This is the new contract you can do while you're playing DMZ, which flags containers in the exclusion zone with essential gear for this experience. This is a great way to get your operator built up after a previous run in DMZ where you failed to extract. So essentially this is going to be a regain contract. So you'll be able to do it at the beginning of a game. I'm guessing it'll probably be quite hard, that would make sense. And you get a bunch of loot from it that will help you, I'm guessing it'll focus on getting things like self-revives and free plate carriers and backpacks and stuff like that. That sounds really cool. I'm imagining there'll be a lot of competition for these at the beginning of every game, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to do. It might even be a strategy to try and get to these contracts and then kind of camp them a little bit, because people who are coming to take those contracts won't be geared up, so they're going to be kind of easy targets, which would be a horrible thing to do. Definitely don't do that. But if you're trying to get a mission done where you have to kill a bunch of players, maybe not a terrible idea. Also, it says there's new bosses. So it says operators should prepare to face new threats across the various exclusion zones, as there are not one but two bosses that Intel suggests are redacted. I mean, I've got no idea what that word could be at all. Intel also suggests that deep underground in Al Mazrah there is redacted. So when it says deep underground, that could be the tunnels that are knocked in Season 2, or it could be maybe like Al Bagra underground. There's already an underground section of that, or maybe it's something entirely different. It says we have plenty more to share as part of a dedicated DMZ blog to be released before Season 3's launch, including new backpack and plate carrier types. So we're going to get more information about all of this stuff sometime before the launch of Season 3, which is on Wednesday, April 12th. So as soon as they post more information, then I'll be able to tell you more stuff about what's happening with DMZ. Super excited about that. So make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on. Let me know in the comments what you think about these changes, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.